What's up, Crypto Knights? Derrick here with you again, and it's been a couple of weeks since I've made a new video for you. And the reason for that is my wife and I just welcomed our son into the world. Our first child was born just 2 weeks ago. So for the last 2 weeks, I've pretty much just been changing diapers 24/7, running on fumes, and very, very little sleep. So it's been absolutely incredible being a dad. I'm just starting to kind of get the words together to really explain how life-changing it is. So if you're a parent, I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from, but it's been really amazing for me. So I've kind of taken the first 2 weeks here to, of course, just get used to my new schedule or lack thereof, and just really take some time to enjoy and take in the blessing that my wife and I have been given. So if you reached out and said congratulations and sent your blessings and all that, I really appreciate it. My wife, Fi, appreciates it greatly as well. And yeah, I just haven't been doing a whole lot of crypto stuff in these first 2 weeks, as you could probably imagine why. But of course, I didn't completely ignore what was going on. It's not really possible for me to check out and not pay attention to the news. So I'm back here with the first video to talk about what's going on in crypto with you. And I'm really happy to be back and, making this video for you today. So exciting times in crypto right now. Bitcoin is back over $7,700 today. This was a key resistance level that needed to be pushed past. We failed a couple of times back in June to break through the $7,600, $7,700 level. There's a whole lot of resistance there, and it was just a real fight between the bulls and bears at that level the past couple of days. And just today, finally, we did break through that $7,700 level, and very, very exciting indeed. I do see the potential for some more upside. Volumes increased greatly over the past week with the rally that we've been seeing in Bitcoin. We're down a little bit volume-wise over the weekends, but that's kind of normal. So I am interested to see, just what happens going into the new week here. But Bitcoin has a lot of momentum behind it right now. And one of the reasons why it has so much momentum is the news that's out there and kind of the speculation that's going around right now about the Bitcoin ETF. Now, you may have heard about this. It's all over Reddit. It's all over Twitter. It's all over everywhere where crypto knights like you and I, meet and talk about what's going on in the crypto space. So it's very likely that you may have heard about this, but I want to give you an update on what's going on with the Bitcoin ETF, and also give you my opinion about whether or not I think this ETF is actually going to be approved, and what that would mean for the Bitcoin markets and also the greater cryptocurrency markets in general if this ETF were to get approved. So you may have heard the date of August 10th as the date that a decision will be released about whether or not this ETF is going to be approved. But that information is not actually correct. It's not August 10th, which is kind of what was initially going around. The date that the response for the filing is due to be returned is actually on August 16th. Now, this specific ETF was filed for by CBOE, and this is a Bitcoin-based ETF. Only Bitcoin, no other cryptocurrencies, Ethereum, NEO, OMG, whatever. It's just an ETF that will only be holding Bitcoin. Now, CBOE, of course, is the Chicago Board Options Exchange, and CBOE along with CME are the two exchanges that are currently offering Bitcoin futures trading. And of course, they've been offering those futures trading since back in December. And they have added a lot of liquidity to the market. They have brought the kind of initial foundation of institutional investors into the market and just given new opportunities for people to hedge against possible downside by offering shorts in the market as well. So the futures have brought a lot with it and a lot of excitement and institutional investor interest into the space. And so CBOE now, off of the initial success of the futures products, they want to bring an ETF into the markets. Now, we've had Bitcoin ETFs be applied for before, and they've actually failed. And there's a number of reasons that they failed, specifically low liquidity, the ability for markets to be manipulated, and there not being really solid data about what kind of trading is going on in these exchanges, being that a lot of the exchanges are overseas. Also, fears about security and hacks and all that, because exchanges do get hacked pretty often, and that will often be in the news, and it causes a lot of fear for people, right? So the SEC wants to make sure that if an ETF is offered, that the customer's crypto will be stored securely in a manner that will provide them some level of security and protection should there be any kind of theft. Okay, now this particular ETF is going to be backed by the VanEck SolidX Bitcoin Trust. And it is an exchange that or a trust that is only going to be holding Bitcoin. Okay, and this is a Bitcoin fund, an ETF that is really aimed at institutional investors, okay? So I don't want you to think that this is necessarily a product that is aiming at the retail investors or, the mom and pop investors that may want to call up their broker and just get a little exposure to Bitcoin in their portfolio. This is not that product yet, okay? Which is actually good for getting it approved, because the SEC is much more likely to approve an ETF that's only going to be aimed at institutional investors first, because the SEC feels, that they're more experienced, they have a higher risk tolerance, and they are more capable of protecting against possible downsides of trading in products such as this. Now, that may or may not be true. Personally, I think, that anybody should be able to be an accredited investor and trade however they want, because it's their money, and that's the way I feel. But this is the reality of what it is. So according to the registration statement, the trust will issue and redeem baskets, each equal to a block of 5 shares to authorized participants. Each share currently represents approximately 25 Bitcoin. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's why you can see 5 shares times 25 Bitcoin. That's like the smallest amount you can have. Now you'll see why it's pretty obvious from the way that they set this up that it's not intended for your everyday retail investor, as most people can't go out and buy 100 plus Bitcoin at the drop of a hat, at least not at the current prices today, right? So it is intended for institutional investors, and they do say they are going to kind of primarily rely on buying from over-the-counter or OTC markets, though they'll also trade using exchanges. The trust expects to do that using Bitstamp, GDAX, Gemini, Itbit, Bitflyer, and Kraken. Now, also a really big important thing about this ETF is that there will be storage and security. Okay, so all Bitcoins held by the trust will be stored using multi-signature cold storage wallets. Additionally, for backup and disaster recovery purposes, the trust will maintain cold storage wallet backups in locations geographically distributed throughout the United States, including in the Northeast and Midwest. And the other big thing about this is they are going to have insurance. So the trust asserts that it will also maintain comprehensive insurance coverage underwritten by various insurance carriers. The insurance policy will carry initial limits of $25 million in primary coverage and $100 million in excess coverage, with the ability to increase coverage depending on the value of the Bitcoin held by the trust. To the extent the value of the trust Bitcoin holdings exceeds a total of $125 million of insurance coverage, the sponsor has made arrangements for additional insurance coverage with the goal of maintaining insurance coverage at a 1-to-1 ratio with the trust Bitcoin holdings valued in US dollars, such that for every dollar of Bitcoin held by the trust, there is an equal amount of insurance coverage. Now, it's probably going to be a little bit tricky when the price of Bitcoin changes so much, even throughout a single day. But the big thing here is CBOE and the people running this specific ETF will be providing both storage, cold storage solutions, and security through the insurance. So, if anything does happen beyond their protection and all the safeguards that they've set up, your Bitcoin holdings would be insured against loss as well. Now, of course, crypto fans have swamped the SEC email in a frenzy to get the Bitcoin ETF listed. More than 90 individuals submitted comments, and apparently the SEC's email has been completely overwhelmed. If you look at this article on Bloomberg, the SEC's email has been clogged up by all of us crazy crypto knights, and that email is 10 times the number of responses the SEC received when it asked for opinions on the previous Bitcoin ETF listing back in April, and overwhelmingly positive. I think they said like 97% of the emails that were sent to the SEC in regards to this were very positive comments saying, it's time for a Bitcoin ETF. This is what the market needs. We want to give more people more exposure, more ability to easily add Bitcoin to their investment portfolios. And of course, that's going to be a little bit skewed in the fact that, only people like you and I that are really into crypto are probably going to email. There's most people out there today just simply don't know enough about Bitcoin or maybe even what an ETF is or what CBOE is doing. So it's not very surprising to me that there aren't any negative emails coming in, but that's positive anyways. The good thing is that people are united around this idea and really getting out there and wanting to support the idea of getting this Bitcoin ETF out in the market. Okay, and on that note, the futures are way up as well, right? So CME reported that Bitcoin futures or average daily volume is up 93% in the second quarter over the first. So of course, the volumes, not just in the real physical cryptocurrency market, if you will, are starting to pick up, but also the futures volume is picking up, and hopefully we will get an ETF as well coming up pretty soon. Now, why is an ETF such a big deal? Because personally, I believe that if an ETF does get approved, this is the single biggest thing that could happen to Bitcoin. And this is the kind of thing that can actually start to bring about some of those crazy valuations that we're talking about, 50,000 Bitcoin, $100,000 Bitcoin, and so on and so on. This would be the start of that kind of thing in my mind. And so, Bitcoin ETF, why is it such a big deal? Well, the real reason to start with is just to look at ETFs in general. Now, here's some statistics and facts about ETFs. So there is over $3.42 trillion of assets managed by global exchange traded funds. Billions and billions of dollars. There are 1,707 US ETFs. Okay, so over a $3.42 trillion market in the United States, and there's about 1,700 ETFs that are traded on the market. Now, ETFs are something that are very widely traded because they have very high liquidity and they also have low fees. Okay, so they also give you access to maybe commodities or other assets that you don't want to physically hold. Such as Bitcoin, for example, right? The big benefit of this is that many people out in the market going forward, and let's just be honest, right? Like you and I, we may like to hold our private keys and have our own wallet and, have a hardware wallet and do all that kind of stuff. But the reality is most people are not going to want to deal with all that stuff. They're not going to want to touch private keys. There's a lot of risk with hackers and just messing up, even sending to the wrong wallet address. So to get the average everyday investor into crypto for the first time, the ETF is the most likely thing that's going to make it happen. Okay, so it's a big market, and getting the Bitcoin ETF launched will bring a whole lot of new money into the market and just make it much easier for people to participate without them having to manage their own private keys, security, and all that kind of stuff. And they'll just be able to call up their broker and say, hey, I want to add some Bitcoin to my portfolio, and the broker will take care of it for them through CBOE's ETF and whatever other ETFs eventually come to the market. Now, I do want to say, you're probably wondering, do I think the ETF is going to get approved or not? Well, personally, on August 16th, I do not think that the ETF is going to get approved on that day. I think it's a little bit too early. My hope is that on August 16th, we will get a response from the SEC that is positive, but will likely ask for some more due diligence. It'll ask for, maybe some more evidence that the manipulation of the markets is not something to be worried about, that the security of the cold storage and the insurance and all of that has been provided in a way that meets all SEC guidelines, etc. Right? So basically, the chances of getting an ETF approved in the first 45 days of application are slim to none. Most ETFs take years sometimes to get approved, so it would be very unlikely for the ETF to get approved on August 16th. Now, with that said, I do believe we will get a Bitcoin ETF approved, and I am hoping that that will come later in 2018 or in early 2019. Okay, so my hope, obviously, my first hope is that on August 16th, the SEC just says, here you go, rubber stamp, there's your Bitcoin ETF, and we're off to the races. But I don't think it's that likely. I'd give it like a 20% chance that we actually get an ETF approved on August 16th. And even if it was approved on August 16th, it would take probably a few months to actually roll out and be released to the market after approval. But I think what's more likely and what I'm hopeful for is that we will get another chance to maybe come back to the table to the SEC with all of the information that they request on this specific application, or I should say response to the application. Whatever additional information that they're going to end up asking for, whatever they need to feel confident and comfortable with allowing this kind of product to be released to the market. Hopefully they ask for all that, they come to the table, and both sides can come back a couple months later, and CBOE can present all of the information that they need to approve this kind of an ETF. And going into, probably the end of 2018 or by mid-2019 at the latest, I do expect there to be a Bitcoin ETF. Okay, so look at this chart. And you may have seen this going around as well. This is kind of why people are really excited. If you look, it might be a little hard for you to see, but if you look right here where the gold ETF was introduced and this Bitcoin chart, they look very, very similar. And of course, you can see what happened from when this gold ETF was introduced and shortly after the crazy rally that it went on. I am personally expecting something very, very similar to happen in Bitcoin. I think we will get a massive rally when an ETF does roll out to the market. And that's one of the reasons why, of course, everyone is so excited about this right now. So what do you think? Do you think that an ETF is coming? Do you think it's necessary? And do you think it really will be as big of a catalyst in the markets as I do? Or do you think it's going to get denied again? Do you think, that the idea of a Bitcoin ETF is just too soon, or maybe you think it might never happen? Just leave your comments. Let me know what you think below. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Please share it with your friends. Let them know what's going on. This is big news with Bitcoin ETF. And go ahead and click that notification bell as well so you can always get our new videos as soon as they are released. And with that, I'm signing off. I'll see you again for another video very, very soon. Peace.